Chris Redfield's Secret Mission. It was some time between Part 4 and 5, and bioterrorists had bought evil virus weapon, but they didn't know Chris Redfield knew it, and the BCAA sent him to eliminate the enemies. Chris Redfield drove in his car, and then a police officer stopped him and said, "I have to arrest you, this car is stolen." But Chris Redfield said, "Now this car isn't stolen, and BTW, you are bioterrorists." And then he punched the officer, and his head was missing, and there was blood everywhere, and brains and bone. And then Chris Redfield was driving around some more until he saw a big truck in front of evil terrorist base, so he could drive the car, and made backflip into the air, and he landed in the base, but he crushed some terrorists, but it was okay because they were evil, and then there was blood everywhere, and they were reduced to a bloody mess and were dead. Chris Redfield jumped out of his car and was surrounded by evil terrorists. "We will never surrender," said terrorists. "Then I have no option but to kill you until you dead," said Chris Redfield, and then he punched the evil terrorist until they were dead. But his mission was not over yet, and he got into the laboratory, but was attacked by giant black evil crap. The monster attacked him with his claws, but Chris Redfield shot him in the face, but his bullets bounced off of monster skin. "It seems that Pyostol not strong enough, but I am," shouted Chris Redfield, and then he punched the crab, and the crab was dead. "Now I have to stop terrorists," said Chris Redfield, and went into the next room that was full of terrorists. "Freeze!" yelled Chris Redfield, and shot a terrorist, and the terrorists were dead. But not one of them. He had a Gatling gun and shot at Chris Redfield and hit him. "I'm not dead, just hit by minigun," said Chris Redfield, and then he punched evil Gatling terrorist, but terrorists laughed. "You big, so I need big punch," said Chris Redfield, and then he screamed, "Chris Redfield power punch." And then he punched the terrorist, and the terrorist was dead, and his head was missing, and there was a hole in his chest. "Now it's time to accomplish my mission and defeat my enemies," said Chris Redfield. So he went to another room and found evil scientists working on ugly black worm thing. "You better not experiment on monster, or I have to arrest you," said Chris Redfield to scientists, and he hoped that they would stop it and surrender, but scientists said, "No, we never surrender, Ouroboros attack." And then the ugly worm thing attacked Chris Redfield and punched him in the face, and Chris Redfield was punched to floor. But he stood up and punched Monster, but Monster didn't care, and Chris Redfield figured out that probably flamethrower could kill it, but there was no flamethrower, so Chris Redfield picked up a can of gasoline and set himself on fire. "Now I will kill you, Monster," said Chris Redfield, and punched the monster, and the monster was unflamed, and it was dead because Chris Redfield killed it with his punch. "No, please don't kill us," said the scientist, and Chris Redfield said, "Now I won't kill you because I'm not evil like you," he said, and went into the next room, but killed scientist anyway, but it was okay because they attacked him with a pistol, and by the way, they were pedophile Nazis, so it was okay. Pedophile Nazis. Suddenly, evil lizard monster sneaked up on him, so Chris Redfield had to punch it, but it was no problem and monster was dead. But there were other lizard monster, but Chris Redfield killed them with his bare hands. Chris Redfield went to other room, but the terrorists were fleeing with cars, so Chris Redfield had to take the cars to catch them. But his car wasn't fast enough to catch, so he went out of the car and punched a big truck to block street, and there was a big explosion, and terrorists were trapped and went out of car and surrendered. Now everyone was happy, and the BSAA and the police and the terrorists said, "Chris Redfield, you saved the world, we thank you." But Chris Redfield said, unobstructive, "I did what I had to be done to defeat the enemies and save America and the American dream from evil terrorists. But evil isn't over because everyday people drive cars and pollute the air. So we have to stop destructing the environment and save the rainforest so our children and children and children and children and children will live in a world worth living in." And everyone cried and the pollution was stopped and everyone happy. End.
So that's it.
That was amazing.
That was